What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and check out the content. And with that being said, I want to speak on a recent episode of the Jason Whitlock show where he and what's the guy named Steve Kim talk about Mina Kimes and a statement that Mina Kimes made as far as like the quarterback play in the league, right? And so they seem to think that Mina Kimes don't really know what she's talking about when she said that quarterback play has never been better in the NFL. And so I'm gonna play what Steve Kim and Jason Whitlock says about her statement. Then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna I'm gonna add my commentary to it.
Mina Kimes is going against the grain. She's in total. I honestly think Coach JB is in her head. She's now saying that I think quarterback play has never been better than we are right now today. And this sent QB play used to be. I mean, this sent JB's head into explosion. Is I think to some degree she's trolling Coach JB or Coach JB's in her head. She's saying foolish things, trying to be provocative, but also trying to trigger JB. He's been hounding her. I've been hounding her. You've been hounding her. Mina Kimes, the expert analyst. Well, you're on JB's show. Mina Kimes, the expert analyst on the National Football League, the little Asian lady that grew up a left tackle, I think, in Pee Wee football out in California or somewhere. You think she's being serious here when she's saying QB play has never been better?
I think she is. I don't think she knows any better. Look, everyone's entitled to an opinion, but I will take that opinion as seriously as the knowledge that comes with it. And look, Coach JB was ahead of the curve by at least 2, if not 3 years. He played the position, he coached the game, and people say, well, it's just him. Okay, but you and I have noticed this, Jason, in the last few months, guys like Kurt Warner, who's only in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and went to a couple of Super Bowls, who breaks down this tape, doesn't look at analytics and numbers. He actually looks at the game and can explain it, have said, man, this quarterback play is bad. By the way, he's not the only one. And you just look at the breadth of how the consensus has changed from, wow, all this game's wide open, everyone's running spread, RPO, to, boy, these games are kind of hard to watch. And basically, games are hard to watch when you have bad quarterback play. So look, Mina Kimes can have her opinion. Coach JB and I and many other guys will reserve the right to vehemently do.
All right, let me stop it right there, right? So with this, like a lot of the new quarterbacks that are in the league, they are different from the old school quarterbacks. Like I watched, like Terry Bradshaw and Dan Fouts, and even after Dan Fouts, you had like Dan Marino and guys like that, right? They even back then, like take for instance, like Terry Bradshaw, Roger Staubach, and all those guys. They didn't throw a lot, right? And because like throwing, like you put the ball, when you throw the ball, you put the ball at risk. You know, it's either going to be an incompletion or reception or an interception, right? And so, and that's what what's the guy name? Bill Parcells used to say, like, one of 3 things are going to happen when you throw the football, and 2 of them are not good, right? So teams, they didn't throw a lot, right? And I think so. If the teams didn't throw a lot, that means that they relied a whole lot on their running game. But now, and I think that teams that don't throw a lot, they have a running game. Now you have athletic quarterbacks who can, you have to account for the athletic quarterback. So I think there's an argument to be made for like what Mina Kimes said, right? Because now you have like the guy up in Buffalo. That guy's a big physical runner. I keep forgetting his name. Then you have Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Then you have the kid that's in with the Texans. The other kid that's a new quarterback. He's with Green Bay. So I think these athletic quarterbacks just add another dimension to the game. Throwing the football, passing the football is still dangerous work. I just watched who was the guy? The guy just threw 2 interceptions for the Giants and they ran and they sat him down. He a veteran quarterback. What's his name? Russell Wilson, right? So I don't know if she's talking about, the fact that you have to account for these new quarterbacks, their athleticism, or what, and but the game, in my opinion, is different than it was, like I said, when I used to watch football, when I started watching football in the 70s and in the 80s and then in the 90s. You still could not throw the ball a whole lot because you had people running around like Lester Hayes. Then you got Deion Sanders out there, then pick it off and go the other way with it. So that's why, you had the running back position was always so, it was very relevant back in the days, but you had to have, at least a halfway decent quarterback who could throw the ball and took care of the ball. Like, in my opinion, like people say that Tom Brady, besides being a GOAT, is like a great game manager, right? He don't put the ball at risk as much as other quarterbacks. I think who else was like that? I think Joe Montana. I don't think Joe Montana threw a whole lot of interceptions. I like Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner, was a really good quarterback. But they're just, like, imagine if you got somebody like Kurt Warner, but also an athlete, people who could throw the ball, and if there's nothing there, they'll run the ball. Even Baker Mayfield, like, I like Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield tuck the ball and run in certain situations. So now, as a defense, you have to account for all these quarterbacks. Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw wasn't going nowhere. Who was a scrambling quarterback? I think Archie Manning was a scrambling quarterback. And then you had another dude, Fran Tarkenton, back in the day. Fran Tarkenton, he'd run around in the backfield for like a half hour, so that they was different. They were like, those guys were before their time because they stayed on, especially Fran Tarkenton, right? He played for the Minnesota Vikings back in the day. He stayed on the move, because they didn't have anything on that team. Archie Manning too, he did a little bit of scrambling, but most of the time, they want you to sit in that pocket and get beat up. Not all quarterbacks had the ability to sit there in the pocket with a lineman, coming up the middle on them and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just think is different now because, like I said, you're getting athletes. Like, most of the time, they used to take the best athlete in like Pop Warner football and in high school and in college. They take the best athletes most of the time, and they used to make those guys the quarterback, right? But by the time you get to the pros, then they didn't do it like that. And so if you was a quarterback, it was a black quarterback, and you just so happen to be the best athlete, they would have you change positions when you was coming to the NFL. Until recently, and that's why I think the game has changed. That's part of the reason why I think the game has changed. Like I said, that guy Josh Allen up in Buffalo, who I don't like, man, he not he's just a big dude, mobile dude, but and he's not easy to bring down. But the game is just different. It's just different, man. If Mina Kimes can kind of, if I mean, if she has an opinion and she can back her opinion, then I think it's legitimate. I think all these guys who see that this is poor quarterback playing gotta also realize that, like, this type of quarterback play is like in its infancy, right? So it's just getting like they just now start to get into like using the IPO and all these different, you know, whatever it is. But as they develop and they realize how to use these new quarterbacks, I think it's going to take football to a whole nother level. But I remember back in the day, some of them football games was hard to watch, you know, just like some of the games today are hard to watch. But also these teams are hard to, you know, they're hard to prepare for because you have somebody back there who's going to take off and run, you know, so you got to account for. It's like having an extra man on defense, you know, like when they didn't have to worry about Tom Brady going nowhere, or Peyton Manning not going nowhere, or Brett Favre, he not going nowhere. Then, you know, their linebacker, you have linebackers like Ray Lewis and Lawrence Taylor, who just roam around just wreaking havoc. But now you gotta make sure that quarterback is not going nowhere. So I think the game has changed. I don't think you always had poor quarterback play because that's a tough position. You know, it's just a hard position to play. You only have out of 32 quarterbacks, you'll probably just have like 5 really good quarterbacks playing in the league at any given time. So that means that the rest of the teams in the league have either an average quarterback or a below average quarterback. And so I don't really, you know, I don't think they should come down on Mina Kimes too hard, you know, just because she Asian and she haven't played quarterback, you know. I think she make a good point, a valid point, and she should stand on it. So with that being said, man, that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.